Well, George, you mentioned coming to New York and doing certain things that were stylistically interesting. But when I first heard you, I heard the influence. I don't know if it was in the Onyx Club or...
Right.
I think,
that
yeah,
was my
Onyx
very
Club.
first job.
Yeah. And you sounded, I could hear the Fats Waller and the Tatum and the...
Well, that was a big problem.
Yeah. But then you went home and really got something else together. Tell me about that. What'd you do?
I had to, because when I came over here, I would go to play for these big agencies, you know, William Morris and people like that. And they all wanted to make another Alec Templeton out of me, you know. The only thing to continue success is to repeat it, you know.
Right.
And I couldn't do that. I wasn't equipped that way. So, and yet I thought to myself, you know what really is bothering them? What do they need the English Art Tatum, the English Fats Waller, the English Teddy Wilson? They've got the real one. And so I heard Milt Buckner, you know. Playing the blues with the locked hand style. Mm-hmm. And so I always say that my arrival in the locked hand style came from Buckner and from And so I adapted Milt Buckner and Glenn Miller to this one. I won't play too much of because I've been trying to kill the quintet ever since I demised it, you know. So I really don't want there ever to be a market for it.
No, let's just talk about the quintet for a minute, though. The quintet really was a much more musical group than most of the critics. I mean, once you become famous, you become fair game for everyone to say, well, it's just a commercial group. But you guys played some very, very interesting arrangements and pretty intricate. Tell me about the kind of voicings that became the Shearing sound.
Well, I always like to describe it in terms of just a scale, which of course everybody knows, and not to get too technical: C major 6, D diminished, C major 6, F diminished, C major 6, A diminished, B diminished, C major 6. And so it's what we used to do is Marjorie would play there, Chuck would play there on guitar, so Vibe's guitar, and the piano would play all 5 voices. Not that, because that's just a harmonization of the scale, but it's probably the most familiar vehicle to most people, and consequently they would be able to deduce from this how we could come up with and of course when you're playing those kind of very well thought out changes, you really have to write your bass line. You can't give the bass player a series of chords, because if you do, then he's really not going to land on the right chords at the right time. So that all those bass notes fall into place because they've been planned.
Well, did that particular kind of exercise give you any new information in terms of the way you revoice things? I know you put out some piano books where you revoiced songs like Over the Rainbow and
Oh
pieces
yeah,
like
it gave
that.
me a
Yeah.
lot of information, because I was forever thinking of what can I do. So. So the bass line really becomes a melody in itself. And I think the prime example of that is, you take a tune like Autumn Leaves, you really could break the bass line up, as you know, Billy, into arpeggiation. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's perfectly good bass line. However, and where does that come from? That comes from, not in actuality, but in texture. Comes from Bach, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's the two-part invention. It's all over. You know, a few minutes ago, you guys were talking about strange modulations and surprising modulations. C'est
Sure.
the front, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
very surprising and wonderful modulation.